You welcome to the learning disability hosting for the 2010 UK Parliament elections.
I want to talk to you today about what Conservative government can do for you. We believe in people power, not state power. We have a leader who truly knows about dealing with disabilities. He had his own disabled son and he's been through the care system and he knows what it's like, and he has a deep personal commitment to safeguard the NHS, to make sure that people with learning disabilities, people in care, get the care and the help that they need, and to protect the most vulnerable in our society.
Some of the things I've been involved in since I've been there have been the Welfare Reform Bill and the Child Poverty Bill and the Equality Bill, all of which I suspect have some kind of relevance today. And I think there is a commitment cross-party to deal with disability at Westminster, but there is a tendency both there and elsewhere to emphasise physical disability, and even within that people tend to think of wheelchairs. So whenever you talk about disability, a lot of people are thinking, well, can I get a wheelchair in here or out there? But clearly there are a lot of different kinds of disability, both physical and learning. That's very much our position, that this is not the time to be making cuts, and specifically not cuts in Scotland.
I also want to pick up on something specific that was mentioned in the Learning Disability Alliance manifesto, and I have to say it's a very, very good manifesto, and I actually agree with virtually everything in it. In particular, point 6, make access to work better to help people get the support they need and extend to cover voluntary work. I think that's a really important ask in your manifesto. Crucially, we want to extend access to work to people who are looking for work. So it's not just about those who have found a job, it's for those who are looking for work, so that adaptations are in place for interview situations and that kind of thing. And that's what we mean by fairness, and that's very much at the heart of our policies and our manifestos. Thank you.
Very proud that I supported all the way through the Equality Act, which just passed at Westminster before Parliament was dissolved. I think it's a really great piece of legislation. This is going to bring together in a more integrated way what public and private bodies can do to help disabled people. In our manifesto, what we're pledging for people who've been disabled but who want to work, not forcing people into work, but people who want to work, is that if they've been out of a job for 2 years, we will have a guarantee of finding them supported employment.
It's absolutely true that the economy is a big, big problem for us all. And do you know what? It's going to be an even bigger problem for all the groups that traditionally end up being sidelined and ignored. I know this from the health service. I've seen it happen in the past. You know, who is going to bear the cuts first? Well, I rather fear that it's going to end up being the people who are least able to speak up for themselves. And that's why I'm very, very pleased that there are organisations like the Learning Disability Alliance who are speaking up. But if you want vision, and if you want the kind of vision which is so lacking these days, the kind of vision which would bring in an NHS type of idea, then you need to look at the areas.
You have his own party that's you put off one capacity better and put them on the job seekers allowance. That's going to make them worse off each week that God sends. And that came from your main office down in London, of one capacity benefit on the job seekers. Again, where are the jobs coming from? The taxpayers that are paying bankers who failed miserably and they're getting bonuses. And the vulnerable are the ones that have been picked on. You know, to me, in the ILF, 12 weeks it takes to process it. They give you 6 weeks notice. So there's a distinct lack of honesty coming from the DWP as well.
There was a recommendation some time ago that there should be a learning disability liaison nurse in each of the major hospitals in Glasgow, and that hasn't happened yet. And as a parent of a young man who has to attend the hospital in an emergency situation quite frequently, I find it quite alarming that the Discrimination Act is not being rolled out to everybody in hospitals because they
learning disability, having a liaison nurse. I didn't catch your name.
Sorry,
Lorena, it's a really good point. And certainly I'd be happy to take that back to my health team within my party. I think that was an sensible idea. But I think the key thing is, for all of us, the health service is a priority. We've got to, across the parties, make sure that the funding is there for public services so that things don't deteriorate as they did in the 80s and the mid-1990s. That's the key.
What can you do to campaign for a better financial deal for people in the social care sector? People who use services and are not hard-working staff. Because for people who use services, things can still be improved on. And for a lot of staff, if you don't have funding, it's very difficult to find resources.
The most important thing that will help care workers is not by having a public sector pay freeze. Again, this is a key issue between ourselves and the Conservatives. We think that there should be some form of increase. We've pegged it to about 1%. But the Conservatives are talking about having a pay freeze for workers on salaries of 18,000. Now, I don't think that's the right way to go. Potentially, you could have care workers caught in that, whose living standards would decline over years to come. So I would have a real disagreement with them on that point.
Direct payments and personal budgets, this is something the Conservatives very, very strongly support. We don't want a little bit here, a little bit there. It should be a total budget for you, for your child, for your loved one, for whatever you're caring for, and you choose how it's broken down. This is essential Conservative value. You choose.
You're absolutely right. There needs to be a range of employment support out there for people, because not everyone is going to be able to access employment in the same way, so there does need to be choice out there. But I do take your point that supported employment is in terms of cost effectiveness, it is much better, and it also kind of links in better with the progressive agenda in terms of living in the community and that kind of thing. It fits within that kind of empowerment agenda.
I find myself a bit torn on this, that I think in an ideal world you would hope that people could be supported in the mainstream workplace. But I think the reality is what we're seeing is that is just not happening. But it does seem to be, I just feel that if we're really going to make progress, we actually need more of the likes of Linecraft and more supported employment, at least in the short term.
We want to make sure, indeed the Equalities Act will make a firmer obligation than ever, that employers, whether public or private, have got to make the changes and adjustments to the workplaces to make sure that disabled workers are able to come in and work. That's very important.
Because actually, although the big three parties would love to stick to this idea that you are somehow involved in a presidential election, you are not. We have a parliamentary democracy and we should protect that. If you're involved in a representative democracy, you get to pick a representative. So go, speak to them, find them and pick amongst them, because it's not a case of Tory or Labour.